George, thank you. Thank you for being my guest today. And I have the privilege to have your input and insights about regenerative coaching and leadership. So I just immediately would love to pass on the ball to you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. It's a privilege to be here too, and hello to all our listeners and viewers. So my name is George Warren. I'm zooming in from the UK. I grew up in London, but I live in the mountains of North Wales at the moment, and I've got a young family as well, 2 daughters, keeping me very busy, very busy. So I primarily work as an executive coach, leadership coach across not only the private sector, but public sector and NGO charity space. I also teach coaching. I've worked with the AoEC for a number of years in their faculty team and as an associate faculty as well. And honoured to be part of their faculty for the level 2 professional practitioner diploma. And then alongside that, I have lots keeping me busy as a supervisor to other coaches, as a mentor coach to other coaches, and I like to create skills and workshops for other coaches as well around confidence, around coaching outdoors, around coaching and climate change. And yeah, I like to keep busy within coaching. I feel very energized by it, and I like to keep outdoors as well. So I do a lot of coaching outdoors in parks, woodlands, mountains, forests, alongside rivers and lakes, either side by side with my clients or with us both with headphones on a call as well. So I'm not the kind of coach that sits down on a seat on my bum for 8 to 10 hours a day. That's just not who I am as a person or a coach.
Wow, that's interesting. I would love to have you in one of our other recordings, how you do that. I'm really interested. And congratulations, you have lots to do at the same time. Okay, so today our topic is regenerative coaching, and my enthusiasm is to create awareness in the coaches and leaders how they can really incorporate regeneration and climate change, and not only the system, the ecosystem, but also regenerative perspective in terms of they themselves, the stakeholders around, and the organization and the environment. So as a system, today we will have a systemic perspective, I guess, as well. So where would you like to start?
Well, I think I'd like to start by saying it's a really complex subject. It's very messy. It's hard to have a very neat model, a very linear GROW or something similar, or CLEAR model. So by its very nature, this subject it's interconnected, it's messy, and it involves sort of existentialism. It involves our existence as a coach, as a leader, but also as a society, and also as a species, but also the plants behind you, the plants behind me. It's all connected in really complicated ways. So one of the most important lenses I offer as a way into this subject is that it's for us as coaches, as practitioners, to be okay in confusion, in messiness, in crisis, in complexity. And one of the ICF competencies I think that's most important as we think about the future of coaching, the future of leadership, is maintained presence. Number 5, comfortable in the space of not knowing. I think a lot of coaches can have an anxiety, a need for control and order and knowing where to go next. And I think sometimes what that can mean is that we coach to the status quo, or we coach in a very linear, safe, controlled way, when life and coaching and business and leadership are not necessarily safe and linear and controlled. So for me, one of the most important ways in is for us to do the work on ourselves as coaches. How do I feel about climate change? How do I feel about what's going to happen to the world as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and as more species go extinct every year? How do I feel about that first is often a great gateway because we do the work on ourselves first so we can then show up fully and helpfully and more, I would say, respectfully and professionally for the person opposite us.
Mhm. Yeah, it's not so what I hear, George. It's not only what I think about it, but how I do feel about it. Not only for the conscientious way, but also how I do feel like when the climate is getting warmer. What is happening to me? How do I feel physically? And I think how do I pay attention to data, about this climate change as well? Yeah.
Yes, you spoke about thinking and talking systemically. We are a system. Our bodies
Yeah.
are a beautiful network and labyrinth of many, many systems. And what I would offer is that psychologically, there is a lot that coaches can benefit from. For example, Anna Freud and her work on defense mechanisms. There are defense mechanisms protecting us from some of the fear or the dread or the anger or the helplessness or the hope or the love that we feel for our home, for our communities, for our children and grandchildren, for our planet. So what we can do is sort of stifle those and ignore them and think, well, coaches shouldn't talk about climate change. Coaches shouldn't talk about the future. Coaches shouldn't be directive. Coaches should stick to the brief. But one of the dangers of that is that if coaches say, we can't talk about this, we shouldn't talk about this, or we should only go where the client goes to, are we really helping the clients and the leaders think regeneratively, thinking in the future, thinking about the next generation and the generation after that?
Mm-hmm.
So there are always different lenses that we can lead with and bring as coaches. And for me, thinking regeneratively invites a sort of wider perspective of the coaching work and invites a wider perspective from the person opposite us. What do you really care about?
Yeah.
And how is that going? What are the threats to that?
And George, what I hear is you talked about the breadth, you talk about the width of the system. I also hear kind of a depth as well to it. How regenerative are we for ourselves? It also involves our own wellness. How are we regenerating our own system? How are we taking care of ourselves as coaches? I think it starts from if you get zoom in from the environment perspective into the person itself. If you are, for example, you talked about the ICF competencies being presence. I would like to contribute with EMCC competencies as the first one, self-understanding. I think it's also has to do a lot. The understanding about the system is also starts with understanding your own system. Unless you don't understand yourself own system, how are you expecting yourself to be more aware of what's going outside? So how do you say? What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I'm nodding and I'm agreeing because I believe that coaching as a profession, as an industry, one of the areas in which I think it is evolving or might want to evolve is not only thinking more systemically and thinking at wider nested, interconnected systems, but also somatically working more with the body, the breath, the billion pieces of data that's all within us all the
Yes.
time, which again
Yes.
speaks to the awareness of self. But I think if we look back at coaching, broadly speaking, the 1990s was characterized going back from things like the Grow model and its roots in I think McKinsey, the consultancies. There was a really business friendly performance um, um, modality to coaching. It was much like a sports psychologist sometimes would work.
Yeah.
How can we improve the performance of this individual? How can we improve the performance of this team, of this organization? It was about optimizing and finding ways to improve performance.
It was quite linear.
Quite linear. And I think there's still, whether it's in coach training or in coach literature or some coaching still, I think there's still quite an attraction to coaching for performance. And I think there's quite a value. But what I'm most especially interested in, and why I call the work that I do the edge of coaching, is because I think coaching is also coming back to its older brother and sister of counseling and therapy. And I
Mm.
think there is a greater demand and a need for coaching at greater depth. What
Mm-hmm.
that comes with, obviously, the need to work on ourselves, to do some deeper work on ourselves. But the sort of coaching that I practice, the sort of coaching that I espouse, is one that honors the fact that we're not a brain on legs. We are a body with a heart and a soul and a spirit. We are tribal mammals that need connectedness and that have emotional needs as well. And often those emotional needs are not being met um, in our clients, be they in their work, in their sense of purpose, their sense of fulfillment. So the interesting areas of coaching for me at the minute are around the transpersonal and maybe even the psycho-spiritual, the what is more than us as a coach and what is more than us as a human.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also coming into the corporate world in different ways in interesting ways. But we're here to talk about regenerative coaching and leadership, and I think a big part of that regeneration is thinking about the more than us. We're not just viewing a tree to chop it down and make paper out of it, but we're thinking about, okay, what seeds can we plant as well? How can we nurture this? How is this part of a biosphere and a biosystem? And how is this tree part of an ecological system? So thinking more ecosystemically, to
Mm-hmm.
to to quote a phrase I think I've heard from Peter Hawkins.
Mm-hmm.
Let me also give a shout out to one of my favorite coaching models out there.
Yeah.
There's a lady called Linda Aspey, also based in the UK, and she and I recorded a podcast interview for a series of podcasts I did for the Association for Coaching called Coaching in the Climate Crisis. And I recommend that as a resource for any people that are listening that like podcasts. I spoke to Peter Hawkins, to Zoe Cohen, to Linda Aspey, to some fantastic Charlie Cox, some fantastic thought leaders in the coaching climate change space. And Linda's model, the name says it all. Linda's model is called With the Earth in Mind. With the Earth in Mind. And it's a very simple, non-linear model. And it has some different prompts for our clients to think about. With the Earth in mind, what do you think? And for me, synonymous with coaching regeneratively, synonymous with the future of coaching, the future of leadership,
Mm-hmm.
is really that sentiment, with the earth in mind.
So what I hear is, George, as coaches, we are not supposed to put our own agenda. We are supposed to stick to the client's agenda. But here we put a different perspective, do we?
Well,
By introducing
there,
a systemic
yes,
outlook.
there's always more than one agenda. I think
Mhm.
one of the myths to bust about coaching is that there's just the client's agenda, because there's the client's agenda, but there's also them as a whole person. It's their who they are as a family member, as part of groups of friends, of societies, and how they how they identify and the cultures they're part with.
Mhm.
So my thinking theory is that if we collude with the idea that there's just one agenda, it narrows, and it also narrows the person opposite us,
Mhm.
because there's also the team's agenda, there's also the business agenda, there's also the societal agenda, there's the life agenda, there's the cultural agenda. So all of these are lenses with which we can invite our clients to look through. And again, my thinking is indebted to many people. Peter Hawkins comes to mind here when he says, who does our work serve? Who does this coaching work serve? Who else? What else? Who else? What else? Who else? What else? Because there's always more than one stakeholder in any coaching conversation. There are even different parts of the coachee.
Exactly.
So if I were coaching you, there might be the you that wants to that progress professionally, but there's also might be the you that wants to spend more time doing things you love, gardening or traveling, who knows what. So I don't think there's ever one agenda and there's ever the client's agenda. And I think offers like that are helpful in coach training, but they're also helpful to shed after our coach training when we encounter the reality that actually there's many more agendas. There's many more stakeholders. And I'm not championing that we as coaches become purely activists who say, you should think about this. You should think about this. That's not my preferred style, although it is for some. What I offer is that we think more thoughtfully and think with more reality around. For example, here's an offer. As opposed to colluding with the bias of the individual, if I were coaching you, I wouldn't say, where do you want to be in 10 years' time? I think that's a very individualistic question. There's a slight tweak we can make to our language that doesn't necessarily collude with a sense of individualism. I might say, think forward to 10 years' time. Describe what the world's going to be like. Tell me about what you see when you look around you and how you see your place in the world. And how do you want to be showing up within that? So again, I would offer that both of those are coaching approaches, except one focuses just on the individual, whereas other thinks, okay, what's the world going to be like? What's going to be around you? What are the in your home country, in your town, in your culture, and what's going to be asked of you then? So already in that shift of questions, we've gone from just the individual to the more than self, to the interconnected, the interrelated. And I think that's one of those easy key shifts in our thinking and in our questioning and in our inquiries as practitioners.
Yeah, exactly. There was a place I would love to come. What are the other pragmatic approaches to coaching that would bring more regenerative mindset into the conversation or into the context? Like, for example, like making little twists in our questions, like involving questions not individualistic but more systemic way. What else you think?
Well, my offer is a playful and provocative one in that I think honoring where our conversation's gone already, these sorts of questions are almost the fruit that come from the roots and from the solid structure of the tree. So as opposed to only adding in questions and tweaks, what I offer is that anyone interested goes a bit deeper into, what are my assumptions as a coach here? How am I currently colluding with a sense of the individual, or for business as usual? Do I, as a coach, want to perpetuate what's happening already? Do I just want to carry on and maintain the status quo? Or do I want to offer a space where we can think more expansively or more deeply, and where my client can give voice to how they feel around what's happening at a societal level, at a geopolitical level, at a planetary level? Do I want to just create an environment where my clients can think like that? So if we have done enough of the work on ourselves, and again, this is not something necessarily that you can do instantly, I recommend taking it to supervision, to reflection, to some training programs out there, or just some reflection in a journal. But for me, the questions are more existential. It's what kind of coach do I want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that mindset, then the questions will naturally form themselves, and everyone listening will find their own way into these inquiries. But it's a mindset shift more than anything of the blinkers, just the person opposite me, versus a question of the more than self, the legacy, the footprints that our clients want to leave after them. You know, who do you care about? What do you care about? And if that could speak, what
Yeah,
would
what
that
is
say?
your value system as a coach? To think
Yeah.
about your value system. And also, I think this requires a little bit included in the contracting phase. When you're introducing yourself, who are you as a coach, and what values do you honor, and what would you like to bring into your relationship as a coach? Also, regenerative perspective could be discussed in the contracting phase. Huh? What do you think about that?
Yes, I think that's I think often the right clients find a right coach, if not the right coach, and there is a degree of, we are talking about depth and emotions and psychological defense mechanisms, and so there is a degree of maturity that's needed, and
Yeah.
I would say professionalism and work on ourselves as coaches in order to hold that space and safely and effectively go into some of the emotions and some of the boundaries of coaching as well. What I also think is important is that we go as deep and as safely as our clients are willing or ready to, and that we don't harm the rapport, harm that environment, harm the trust and safety by, as I said, forcing or overly directing or steering. As we know from our experience as coaches, if you try and sort of manipulate or lead someone to a particular way of thinking, you'll probably shut them down, and they'll probably disengage and dig in, and they may well end the coaching relationship. So there's something about partnering in a supportive way and ensuring that through contracting and through recontracting, I would say, through that we are honoring the work that needs to be done, but we are also bringing compassion and challenge into our work so that our clients can think or feel more deeply or in different ways that will better serve them and everyone they care about, or all the stakeholders in the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, what systems are we talking about to be involved for such purpose? The system, as if the body is a system, and also as a more integrated way, like body, mind, and soul.
Yeah.
What else? The ecosystem, the environment we talked about. So
Yes.
what systems are in between, you think?
Well, I'm keen to not be very instructive or didactic here, and bring a sense of playfulness and invite the coach and client to experiment here. Um, Sometimes I view it like sort of Russian dolls inside
Yes,
one another, and
Matryoshka.
yeah, and this is perhaps more helpfully played with on a whiteboard or some paper, but there are infinite numbers of systems that connect us all and connect us within each other as well. So yes, the body as one system, but also we've got lots of many systems within us. Our nervous system, for example. I think you said mind, body, soul, and one I go to quite often is head, heart, and gut as well. And the fact that we've got brain cells in all three can be an incredible source of tension and conflict and inquiry and awareness in our clients. But I'm less keen on saying which system as opposed to inviting the client to name or map or explore the systems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It might be, for example, family is a fascinating and infinitely rich source of wisdom. Someone's heritage, someone's culture, religion, different ways that we identify and we explore parts of ourselves. I think they're often all ready to be in play in coaching conversations. And if we think about, again, not only in the professional sense of team, of organization, of industry, um, there are so many. And again, for me, it's about that widening out of the perspective and inviting our clients to explore or map or name or articulate the different parts of the system or the different systems that are in play. Because something I say a lot is that the future of coaching is bright, the future of coaching is systemic. And I would love to see more, even more, of honoring that in, for example, the coaching competencies and in foundational coaching training, because it can be argued that if we just focus on the individual, what is your goal? Where are you now? What do you want? What will you do? That we collude with the Instagram generation, the selfie generation, the era of me and I. And it's pretty clear that what's needed at a global perspective is a different consciousness which honors our dance with each other and our dance and an inextricable need and interconnection with the natural world as
Even
well.
in selfie photos as a background, it's not itself only, because you have to have a different, if you're angle, then you include the background. So what I hear so far, George, is well, the first question is, who am I as a coach, and who do I contribute to? How do I take care of my system? How do I understand my own system? How do I take care of my system? System is also like kind of a body system. How do I take care of my own wellness, and then my value system? And how do I, what is the system as a coach and a coachee is another system. And starting from that core to the more wider perspective into the environment, into whatever other systems, we can be more playful and creative. And thinking from different perspectives is already creates a lot to do with generative approach, right? And also how you introduce yourself as a coach, how you also create the relationship, and how do you invite the coachee, the leaders, to take part of that playfulness with you into that.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you would like to actually add before we wrap up?
Well, I'm also keen to honor that primarily I work as an executive coach, and perhaps a lot of your listeners to this will as well. And I'm thinking about working not only one-to-one, but also working with teams, team coaching,
Wow.
and
Yes.
and in wider training pieces of work or facilitation or action learning sets. There is if we think about being regenerative, so what do we mean? And what I offer is that we are thinking and inviting the people that we are with to think a bit further ahead, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead, and think about implications and think about, so what are the repercussions of taking this course of action, and how will that move you towards or away from what's important to you? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think what I would offer is that we coaches don't necessarily take the goal at face value, but we use our coaching skills to explore, unpack, maybe even challenge the goal, to really clarify what is the real piece of work that's needed of us, and a sense of vocation. What are we being called? What are we being pulled towards?
Mm-hmm.
In my experience of coaching to date, it's there can be a natural idea to think about quite a simple objective and topic. And my work's been informed by the research and work of Dr. Richard Boyatzis over in the USA. A fantastic book called Helping People Change. And sort of neurologically, he speaks about us engaging our clients in a PEA, positive emotional attractor, that a satisfying and exciting vision for the future, which lights up amazing parts of our brain, but also gives us that sense of hope and buy-in and achievement. And he said to me, it's never about the presenting problem or issue, that with a bit of scratching and digging and challenge, we can get to the heart of the matter, of the goal, of the purpose. Why are we really here? And what is our work really here to do? And again, just changing our language around what wants to happen through you is a fantastic question that, again, it connects us to the spirit of energy, to the spirit of life, and again, of more than ourselves, that we're
What
not.
bridge are you serving as?
Exactly. So yeah, I think that sort of playfulness and the challenge, and what are we really here to do, and thinking a bit further afield.
Yeah.
These are really helpful. Even if a coach doesn't want to work systemically, these are really helpful inquiries that will evoke a deeper and richer awareness versus something more strategic around and diagnostic. What is the one unique, simple goal that we've got?
Yeah. As we talk, a new bulb just lights in my mind. It's also, there's a work for supervisors as well, to provoke coaches to think about, how they can put new perspectives around this. Yeah, it's a systemic, that's also supervisors as a system, part of the system. Yeah. All right. Thank you, George. I think this was very insightful. I hope our audience also has, found great value in how they can transform themselves into regenerative coaches if they would love to. And is there anything else you would like to wrap up before we close the session?
Well, what I offer is a spirit of love and compassion for where everyone listening is on their journey. And the metaphor of the butterfly goes from a caterpillar. It creates its own cocoon, and it changes, it evolves, it sort of, in a way, sheds but also disintegrates part of itself to evolve into the butterfly. And in that spirit of transformation, I offer the spirit of evolution and growth and opening up to new experiences. And yeah, thank you for such an engaging conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I think this metaphor was also is put right in place. How you evolve from how you evolve from what is it called in English? The first part, caterpillar into the butterfly. And as you're a butterfly, you still create an impact as a butterfly effect. What is your butterfly effect? And I love the question, what is trying to become through you? I think that's a really huge question to think about. And how you evolve yourself, how you understand your part, how you understand your role in the system as a coach. So thank you. Thank you, George. So I hope to host you for new subjects, new topics as we evolve together. Thank you.